Control and ControlGlobal.com with another in the Control ARC monthly podcast series. Every month, we look at the issues raised in the cover of Control with the insights of ARC's analysts. For this month, March 2013, the topic is Enhancing Operator Performance and how prioritized data, simpler displays, human factors designed equipment, fatigue reduction efforts, alarm planning, and other tools can all improve situational awareness and performance. With me today is Dave Woll, ARC's Vice President of Consulting and Senior Process Analyst, and father of ARC's best-selling Collaborative Process Automation System, or CPAS statement, on what a process automation system should be. Dave, thanks for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
All right. First question is, so the article showed that there are dozens of different ways to approach operator performance, and they seem to be multiplying. From your perspective, what are the most significant methods today, and what new ones are emerging, and how come?
I'd be happy to talk about this, Jim, but first I think it's important to talk about the underlying challenge that we're facing. Then I'll discuss the solutions, one of which is improve operator performance. The challenge we're facing is a severe and growing shortage of skilled process operators, and we'll never be able to replace these operators at the rate that they're retiring and they're leaving right now. For example, a few years ago, I was interviewing a refinery manager for a major U.S. refinery, and I asked him, what is his biggest challenge? His answer was, how can he replace 2,500 years of experience that he's losing this year? In short, he couldn't. He had 100 operators retiring, each with an average of 25 years experience. This is not an unusual situation. And eventually, the role of the operator must change to accommodate this. Okay, now I'd like to answer your questions. Yes, in most process plants, the operator is the primary focus in driving the process, and therefore operator performance warrants a great deal of attention. Here are some of the significant methods that I think make sense. Okay, number one, let's give the operator a promotion. A typical operator is underutilized with too many manual tasks that are boring and consume 95% of his time. The remaining 5% deals with chaotic situations, straining his inherent skills and experience. And he works in a plant where the automation is typically also underutilized. Why not automate the operator's manual tasks based on best practices and make him a supervisor that only gets involved when he can make a difference? I often work with a major chemical company here in the U.S., one of the largest, that believes automation should run the plant and people, the operator, should only get involved by exception. Number two, along the same line, leveraging technology can help. The American Petroleum Institute guideline states that an average loading for an operator should be approximately 120 loops. However, if these loops are model-based predictive controllers, the number doubles to 240 loops per operator. Yes, if the operator is sitting in a chair, ergonomics will help him be more alert for 95% of his time. 5, yes, display clarity will make him more effective for the 5% of his chaotic life. And lastly, yes, rationalizations along the lines of ISA 18 will help him stay focused.
Okay. Then my next question would be, are developers and suppliers and integrators and users, merely adopting new intelligent displays, or are they finally getting down to prioritizing the data on their HMIs and following the Abnormal Situation Management Consortium's guidelines? And if so, what forces are helping that to happen?
Okay, in the heavy process industries such as refining, petrochemical, et cetera, there is the impetus, and it's being driven by operational excellence and the principles of high volume, low cost manufacturing that typically is capacity limited. In other words, you never can recover the time lost as a result of a mistake. The ASM has taken the lead, but there are several good sources of this expertise. In the light process industries, ASM and similar guidelines have not caught on as much, but this is changing, and it will be driven by good manufacturing practices, and the regulators.
Okay. Is fatigue reduction really becoming part of enhancing operator performance at last? And what do these efforts have to include, and how much can they actually help?
Yes, it is. Ergonomically pleasing consoles, both aesthetically and functionally. Increased emphasis on operator comfort, including temperature, the minimization of spurious noise, and glare in the control room are all making a big difference.
Okay. With all the software and the smartphones and the tablet PCs and other interfaces popping up, how can operators and their managers decide, which will be most useful to them in improving performance?
This is an advantage is being well accepted in the chemical industry in particular. They can accomplish this with well thought out and documented work processes that are facilitated by the social media and strictly followed.
Also, assuming in-class and on-the-job training hasn't disappeared under all the cool toys, are there any new training methods emerging to help improve operator performance, and how can users deploy them?
The answer is yes, there are new methods, and we could talk about avatars, etc. But I think it's worthwhile to touch on technology again and make a couple of other points. The use of training simulators has expanded, and in many cases, these training simulators have been brought into the control room. First, to make it more accessible for training, but also operators are now using these training simulators to exercise strategic what-if moves in the process in order to anticipate undesirable consequences, such as making smoke in an urban area, which can trigger a lot of unhappy customers calling into you. The other point I would like to make is that in more sophisticated users, we are seeing the use of incident prediction and avoidance technology to warn the operator of an undesirable event that he cannot anticipate far enough into the future so he can avoid that event, and if that event is unavoidable, to minimize the consequences associated with it.
All right. Finally, are you seeing more collaboration between some of those soon-to-be retiring veterans and the rookie process control engineers around transferring knowledge and improving performance? And how are some of the remaining persistent barriers between them perhaps being broken down?
Yes, there is an increased sharing. Sometimes it takes management intervention and coaching to help both parties understand why it's important and how to communicate. Also, we're seeing sometimes incentives being used to help along the situation.
Okay, Dave, I think that was some great analysis, and you really fleshed out some of the issues I brought up in the operator performance cover article. Thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you, Jim.
This has been another in the monthly Control ARC podcast series. I'm Jim Montague. Thanks for listening.